Yeah, just as normal normal deal. We do not affiliate with any sect, denomination, or claim to be our affiliation with. This is a neutral classroom of neutral ground. So any affiliation or identification is not recognized here. And this being said, if anybody has a problem with this, you may leave or stay. That is up to you. And you will not be held against you for next time you want to join us. Thank you. And thank you guys for being here. Now, since what's going on is I had these 9 points I wrote and typed out a while back, and that I figure since in light of things that people are joining that we might want to go back through it, and then from here we will be leading into other avenues again in class, and hopefully this helps you improve your path and helps you improve your life as a person and within whatever struggles one may have. All right. What I'm going to start with today is on morals. So, and then we'll go from there. And this will be on the podcast and be recorded into transcripts. So you can come back and refer back to it at any time. So, morals. Evaluate the right decision and choice of action. When we are faced or come to a crossroads to consider what our actions are or what we are to do, we weigh out how this can happen and to what extent this action or choice will affect the outcome, its effects or possible effects onto those in the scenarios down the road and also those involved. So we want to look at morals as rights and wrongs. And from there, we want to go with that. Now, these aren't always the easiest choices because we battle within ourselves with our wants and our needs and with other afflictions we may deal with on a day-to-day basis. And for some, it's easier, and some it's not so easy. But in this, depending on where and how you look at it, we want to look at either mercy or grace, or empathy and compassion with ourselves. And we have to remember that. But we also have to come to a point of those crossroads of when do we commit to those things? What steps do we need to take to find that, whatever it may be? What is it that I am wrestling with to help me maintain these morals? What is it that I need to come to terms with to do this? And what is it within myself that I need to face? And each of us has that part within us that we wrestle with. And this is a very personal thing for each of us. Our history, experiences, how we were brought up, and maybe our beliefs that this challenges. And maybe those beliefs challenge our morals. Either's okay, but as long as you're doing right by those morals. And hopefully the morals that one has will align with the definition. Now, the question I have is, and this is for y'all, what is y'all's understanding of morals? And let's take it from there. Okay. So I've read morals. Now, what are y'all's thoughts?
What's right?
What's right? Yeah. Right in as far as what? I mean, right can be at different, there's different versions of right. Right by its true definition, or right by how we see it. Or what might be comfortable as we see it. And I'm not trying to throw a word salad in or to confuse you, but just what is right?
The greater good of a situation.
Okay. And what might benefit us?
Not necessarily.
Okay. What do you mean by not necessarily? I mean, could you elaborate?
I guess it depends on how it's weighed out.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. So, what do you think, Xenon?
Well, I would go as far as saying that a morally, well, I don't want to say right decision usually denotes that it's not going to be the easiest choice available.
Okay. Fair enough. Now, what would make it not the easiest choice?
Because what we deem as moral may not necessarily be what we view as being the better option at that time.
Okay. So let me play the devil's advocate here. We know that morals are right and wrong, good and bad, right? Okay. So if one, if something is right and it's good, then how could the correct moral action be the wrong decision? If it benefits us, if it benefits the situation and those around us down the road.
Mm. Um, because what we would see as being useful for ourselves or other people may be clouded by other viewpoints or maybe a false pretense or something of the sort.
Okay. So if something's good and bad and it's right, then how could it be a false pretense? Well, I mean, would it be from self interest? Or would it be in a genuine effort? And I'm not saying that, sticking by our morals and acting on our morals is always easy. But however, if the benefit down later and at the moment is right, then what would make it anything other than? I know it's a tough one, isn't it?
Right now, I'm thinking about like big picture of what's right, and then the individual perspectives of what is thought of as fair for particular people.
Okay. Now, let's not confuse what's right and moral with fair.
Well, isn't that what you're discussing? Because you're discussing individual perspectives
Okay.
versus.
Right. But sometimes good and right and correct doesn't always weigh fairly. So, in other words, might there be a compromise? If one can be found? That's a tough one, isn't it? Because our morals are what lead us, hopefully, to make the right choices and decisions as we go through the day and go through our week. Showing up to work, driving our car, walking down the street, buying something from the store, or in our growth, or in our planning. And yes, each individual has their own place for what their morals are and what their moral choices are and what they stick by morally. And though fair, that could also be something that might be what makes something comfortable. But on the other side, if we're trying to grow and change and working at it, that's not always comfortable because we're challenging our own position. We're challenging our own thoughts and fighting against that versus what we want versus what we need. And though right isn't always fair, but it can also be a contradictory. Because a compromise isn't always going to be where both sides within ourselves or within another person, both people are not going to get what they want all the way, right? You've got to give something up. So morals, as it mentions in there, weighing out what is weighing out how it's going to affect others. So, okay. So we evaluate the right decision and choice of action. When we are facing a crossroads and what we are to consider. So, in that, That's not always going to be fair. But sometimes what's right and what's wrong, it might be what the best correct action is. What's best. And sometimes that might be fair if it benefits. But everything else has to be considered in this. Is it just to quill a squeaky wheel, as one might say? Or is it just to placate, to make everything happy and comfortable? Or if it's the hard right choice and decision, then from there, so be it. And then the others will have to come to terms, or we'll have to come to terms within ourselves. And they have to accept that. Now, so, which brings us back to when one is at the crossroads. What does that mean when you're at crossroads? Joy or Xenon, sorry.
Fundamentally, it's being at a crossroad of either staying stagnant and being complacent in where you're at, or pushing on and moving forward in whatever area you need.
Okay. Okay. So, but the crossroads is you're trying to make a decision and an inner decision though, right?
Right.
Just staying on the same page with you here, just staying clear with you, staying clear, just maintaining clarification. So, Julie.
A fork in the road and confliction.
Yeah. So if one is wrestling with their morals at that fork in the road or the crossroads, you have different directions you can go, right? So if you go one direction, how will that align with your morals? Okay, for example, let's say you're running late to your job, okay? But yet you see somebody in need, desperate need, and you're already on the line of keeping your job or not. But this person is in desperate help. And everything inside you says, help this person at the risk of your job. What do? Maybe you have an understanding boss and you explain the situation and it gives you a break, shows mercy. And he's empathetic in that. That you know that you are taking a great risk of your job. Maybe he suspends you for a couple of days afterwards, but yet still lets you keep your job. Or maybe he goes, after today, pack up. Or maybe he goes, I understand, but however, as a compromise, and it's fair in light of you'll be on probation for the next 90 days again as a disciplinary action. So was your moral decision just? That kind of puts you in a quandary, doesn't it? And was that the right decision? But after doing so, could you put your head on the pillow and go to sleep at night afterwards? We want to do what's right by nature. We want to be able to look at ourselves again without feeling shame and without feeling embarrassment. And that is being fair to ourselves morally. That is showing mercy to ourselves. And the grace with it. You know, mercy is knowing that you've done something wrong or somebody's done something wrong. And the person, your boss, is giving you that mercy to let you keep your job. And he's letting you have the grace, or he's being graceful in it, knowing he should fire you. I hope I've got that definition right. Hope I'm using it right. So, yeah, he's showing mercy. And he's giving you a reprieve, which is grace. So, but ask yourself, take a moment. What's been a moment where you've had to be in that position? And what was the outcome? Let's reflect on it for a moment. Everybody got something? Okay. So I'll go first. And then I'll throw a dart and I'll pick somebody since there's only three of us here. So since I don't have very good aim, hope I don't hit you in your forehead. So there was a day that I was at a pool at somebody's house and this mother wasn't watching her child. And the kid ended up falling in the water. And the mother was in hysterics for the time. And I ended up jumping in to retrieve the child out of the water. Now, what would have been the moral thing to do. And it didn't happen once, but it happened twice. From y'all's perspective, what should I have done? You jump in because it's your kid, and I'm saving your kids now. What would y'all think, looking at it morally?
I'm not sure what the question is.
Okay. The mother who isn't watching her kid as responsibly as she should because she's distracted by a person. Okay. And her kid wanders out and falls in a swimming pool. Okay. And somebody retrieves the kid out of the water and saving the kid because the kid doesn't know how to swim. But the mother discovers this and goes into hysterics. After the first time, what do you tell the mother? And if the mother apparently is not being responsible, and this it happens a second time, which it did, what do you tell the mother? Since you've jumped in the water twice after the child. What do you tell the mother that would morally be right? I'll let you think about that one for a minute, Julie. Joy, what do you think? Xenon,
Well, after the second time, there would be no third time for such an instance. So I would flat out tell the mother, I'm calling the police. And when the police arrive, file a complaint with Department of what, Family Services or whatever the heck they call it.
yeah, Department of Human Services, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the route I would go, because once is bad enough, 2 times your kid's gonna freaking die. 3 times, there is no 3 times, because that's not happening.
Right. Now, though I agree with you, okay, I agree with you. And here's where I'm going to throw a monkey wrench in this, okay, just for the sake of conversation. What if that destroys that mother's life and she loses her job? Now, I agree that the mother should be responsible and should be looking out for her own kid and not being distracted by a guy she's interested in. Okay. I agree that yes, that would be the right thing to do. But on the other hand, what if it does destroy her life? I think we can go. I think it goes without saying that, yeah, that mother should, everything being right and being a good mother or a responsible mother. Yeah, she's asked for DHS getting called and child welfare. So yeah, Julie, what would be your thought?
I'm not sure how to answer that.
Okay. What makes
all right, hold on. So without ruining the parent's life, because
Mhm.
there could be many different factors and such,
Okay.
I would go as far as potentially parenting classes being required.
Okay. Okay. All right. And say maybe a family member temporarily having
Take
custody.
custody of the children, yes, yes,
Okay. All right.
yeah.
That's, I would say that would be a fair consequence, provided the mother shows some kind of regret for her actions. And that if she's going to be with some people and she's not going to be a responsible parent at the time, then, and going to be distracted by other motives, then yeah, this would hopefully teach the mother a good lesson, because this would be her first offense. Now, granted, the child's life was at risk and that harm could have come, but somebody jumped in the water. So everything came out okay and the kid turned out fine, but just drenched, just a drenched sponge from, So, and he, a on the more extreme side, but it was a real event. So it's it is one of those things that not everybody's going to run into that. Not everybody's going to have that experience. But do you see where the evaluation and the decision and the crossroads may come? And it's hard to say exactly, because we've never, many people have never been in that situation, and many people will never be in that situation. So we weigh out how this can happen and to what extent this action or choice will affect the outcome and its possible effects. So from there, it's anything we have to wrestle with morally is never easy if it's something serious. And it could be something minor of to the point of Christmas, buying gifts. Do we eat, or can we squeak by and give the kids something they really want for Christmas? Okay. And, of course, I think a parent's going to want to do what's best. And what's going to make the kids happy. And that any parent knowing that if your kid gets something for Christmas they really want, the parent's going to have joy in that. So I think that one goes without saying, morally for the parent. Let's do this for the kids, and we can manage it. So So I'm going to flip back over to my notes again here, and let's go with something else that might help out with the moral thing here. Principles. Knowing the difference between right and wrong, we would like to think we know or have been taught this at some point in our lives. Either as we are being raised or when we are teaching this to others. However, this isn't always the case. Circumstances can change our principles, and events can change them as well. However, do they really? So we have to think about with our morals and our principles, how do they align? How do they measure with each other? And we'll do the principles. There'll be a class on the principles just themselves, but I figured at this juncture that since we're talking about morals and discussing it, and this being on a podcast also, that might be a good addition into this and something to think about and ponder. Because we want to think about ourselves and what we do as being good people. We want to think about what we do, even though we might have all of our own flaws and our own defects and our own afflictions. But also, if one's got common sense, that with all of that involved, with all of that there, they can still make good choices and good decisions. Even though everybody's been dealt the cards they have at the time. In other words, making the best of it. And then in time, a decision can be come to, a decision can be made, and be okay with that when everything's been weighed out and you're ready to go on what direction at the crossroads you're going to be, and then carry forward. And then be able to rest our head on the pillow at night and be able to look at ourselves in the mirror. And giving ourselves that mercy and grace and that compassion and empathy. Now, with the empathy and compassion, I'm going to talk on that for a moment. Is that we understand what empathy is, right? It's the understanding of how come something's happening or how come somebody's doing something, whether we agree with it or not. We're looking at it from their perspective. And the compassion is that mercy and also the grace with it. And it's showing care. Oh, hi, Max. So in this, we can understand how someone can be in a position. But also sometimes in that, the compassionate thing would be to let that person be where they are and let them come to terms on their own without aiding, which is hard to understand by some people. And empathy would also be from the other person of understanding how come the person who is practicing compassion that would need to take a step back and allow the person and things to run their course until the time comes. It's not that anybody would care less. On the contrary, it would mean that because they care and that they understand where a person is, that they would have to struggle with this, whatever their position is at that point in time, to have to go through it and walk it before. And then when they're ready, the person who's watching from afar comes forward to help them out some more and to help them and show them the door of, now it's your turn to walk through the door. I've brought you here. What's your choice? What's your decision? There's the door and there's the doorknob. So, and this is where that's being done without judgment. That's being done with compassion. Because nobody can judge that person any more than the person's already judging themselves. They're already dealing with enough with it. So, with that being said, and this actually taking a different turn, which I always like, you never know what to expect, which is fine. I love it. So, from there, let's go ahead and call the podcast end recording. And thank you all for showing up today.